It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Comoros. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers the players of Comoros. Comoros reached their first African Cup in 2021 and we did cover them in that tournament. They did not reach the Cup in 2023, but here they are again in 2025. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We completed a look at the groups, teams and players of the CONCACAF Gold Cup in the summer of 2025. This African Cup here is, of course, our current project. We also did a media cast introducing ourselves. So it covers some of the priorities and quirks of what we do. And it also has a quiz, which is still alive. Winners will get a mention on the media cast covering the team of their choice. We're doing this player media cast in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and then we categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more detail on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps even just the names of the players less likely to get there. Part 2 is going to come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad is selected. That'll probably be in early December. And at that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover a couple of other things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode here in part 1 has 3 sections. Section 1, we're going to look at some general information on the team. Section 2, we cover the main candidates in each position. And in Section 3, we will summarize and conclude talking about injuries and a kind of a review there. So let's move on to Section 1. We have a few orders of business to do here. First of all, we'll talk about any big names who are off the squad. So we do have Najim Abdu, sometimes called Jimmy Abdu. He was the captain of the team in 2021. He was 37 years old at that time. He is now retired from international and from club play. He did that after the African Cup there in January 2022. The other one we'll mention here is Shaker Al-Hadur, also a bit of a veteran at the time on the squad, but the reason we're mentioning him is because he was a left defender who was pressed into the position of goalkeeper. So that story will come up in part 2. But that kind of made him famous. He was goalkeeper in their game against Cameroon, their round of 16 game. And he last appeared for the team in March of 2023 and actually retired from soccer altogether in 2025. So Shaker Al-Hadur, and we'll mention that story, as I said, in part 2. Let's take a quick look at club affiliations. A lot of players on Comoros are connected to France, either born there or else moving there to play their club soccer. Generally, it's secondary club teams in France or maybe other countries in Europe, such as Troyes, Ajaccio, Amiens, teams like that. Not the top level teams, but kind of secondary French teams. Outside of France, we have Sparta Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Standard Liège represented. We do have some of the younger players, though, with probably slightly better clubs, Marseille, Monaco, for example. So 3 players there, but they haven't really been integrated into the team. They're just starting out. So perhaps next time around, they'll have even better club affiliations than they do now. Let's move on to recent games. We're going to look at the games in the build-up to the Cup here. We're examining the position of players from after the 2023 African Cup in January of 2024. However, our starting position for Comoros will be going back to take a look at their last African Cup. That took place in January 2022. And actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to clear up the nomenclature a bit. I'm going to call the 2021 African Cup and the 2023 version, I'm going to call them the 2022 and 2024 African Cups, because that's when they took place, in January of those years. So just to make it clear when they were played. So after the 2024 African Cup, from March 2024 to October 2025, Comoros played 17 games, and we're going to call that the current period. They also played in two COSAFA Cups. COSAFA is the local cup among African teams in the south, even though Comoros is kind of in the east of Africa, north of Madagascar even. They are part of the COSAFA group of South African teams. And generally, though, they send a different team for that. So we're not going to include those games in the count of the current period, but we will briefly mention players who overlap with the senior team. Let's take a quick look then at the games that we'll be covering. As I said, we will use the 2022 African Cup as our starting point. They played 4 games in that cup, and then we're going to jump forward to March of 2024. They played 2 friendlies there, and in June of 2024, 2 World Cup qualifying games that we'll look at. During the summer that year with the COSAFA Cup, again, we're not going to include that in the count, but they played 5 games in June and July of 2024. And then 6 games of qualifying in the fall of 2025, and that was actually African Cup qualifying from September to November 2024. Then in March of 2025, they go back to World Cup qualifying and played 2 games there. There was another COSAFA Cup in June of 2025, which we'll largely ignore. In June of 2025, it was a friendly period for the African teams, and Comoros only played 1. Whereas most teams played 2 there in June of 2025. And finally, we have the most recent games, World Cup qualifying completed for the African region. They played 4 games in September and October of 2024. So that means 17 games where we'll be looking at the position of the players, and the manager remained the same throughout all of those games. I'll look at formations before we get there, and we won't go through it in detail, but what we will say is out of the 17 games, 8 of them, or almost 50%, were a 4-3-3 formation. And then we have, well, we won't go into detail beyond that. We have 5 other formations that they used during that period, but we'll summarize by saying a 2-man defense, a 2-man central defense was used 76.5% of the time. We'll say 75%, or 3 out of 4 times. It's a 2-man central defense, but about a quarter of the games they do have a 3-man central defense, so someone added there. And then similarly, a single forward is used in about 75% of the games, and then in about 25% or a quarter of the games they use a 2-man forward line. So yeah, I think keeping in mind the 4-3-3 formation there, and I should say when we look at the 3 forwards there, we are viewing that as a single forward with 2 attacking midfielders on either side. And we'll talk about that when we get to the position. Our last order of business here is upcoming games. Sorry, I had to cough there. They don't actually have any friendlies scheduled for December. Um, they may, but they do have an order of business, and that's qualification for the 2026 Arab Cup, which takes place in Qatar in early December, whereas this tournament, the 2025 African Cups, begins on December 22nd. So a lot of teams there having to navigate two tournaments. On November 26th, then, in Qatar, they play a single game against Yemen to see who qualifies for that cup. Okay, that's the end of part one, and we move on to our main section here, part two, where we begin looking at the players. And we're going to begin with the manager here. We have outgoing manager Amir Abdu. I'll talk about him in the summary of the situation over the last little while, but he was their manager during the previous cup, and we won't go into detail beyond that. We did that for the 2021 mediacast. We're going to focus more on Stefano Kusin, who is their current manager and has been throughout the period, and he is a Canadian, I'm proud to say. I'm a Canadian as well. And it's quite interesting. I just discovered him actually through this tournament, but he's fairly renowned given his career, and I'm surprised I've never come across him before. He didn't play for Canada. He was a professional player in France from 1980 to 1991, but he didn't earn any international caps. And he's been the manager of Comoros since 2023. He was the manager of South Sudan before that, from 2021 to 23, and has had a lot of jobs in a lot of countries. I'll just mention a few here: Palestine, Cyprus, South Africa, England, and various positions too, not always a manager, but assistant manager, technical director, and so on. So a very busy career for Stefano Kusin, and he is a French-Canadian, I believe. In fact, I know he's from Montreal, I believe. I know he's French-Canadian. Okay, so those are the only two managers kind of on the table before us. Let's talk about a summary of the situation. So Amir Abdu was the manager of Comoros for a long time, from 2014 all the way to 2022, taking them through their first ever African Cup. I imagine he wasn't fired because they were pretty successful in that cup, but he did leave the team shortly after, in February of 2022. His assistant manager, Younes Zerdouk, took over, and Younes Zerdouk had been the assistant manager under Abdu since 2017. Zerdouk lasted until September 2023, and in October of that year, French-Canadian manager Stefano Kusin took over and has been in charge since. So, as I said, being Canadian, I should know of him, but I just learned of him here. And he led Comoros to a first-place finish in qualifying here over Tunisia, getting them to this tournament. Not so successful in World Cup qualifying, which has recently finished for the 2026 World Cup. They finished 4th of 6 in that group. Okay, so Stefano Kusin leading them through the tournament. Let's move on to goalkeepers, and we'll just begin by introducing the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. So we have Yannick Pandor as a definite candidate, and Salim Ben Boina, also a definite candidate. At the likely level, we have Adel Anzimati Abudu. I'm going to call him Adel Anzimati. And then we have a possible candidate in Naim Saeed Shindra at the possible level. And finally, we have the starting goalkeeper in the 2021 African Cup there. 2022 African Cup. I'll stick to my nomenclature there. Ali Ahamada. who we won't talk about. He's possible but unlikely here, but actually last appeared for the team in September of 2023. So we won't introduce him beyond that. What we will do, though, is take a quick look at the main candidates here, starting with Yannick Pandor, and he's been with Comoros since 2022 and has 13 caps and is 24 years old, and he plays for Lens in France. So another of those, secondary clubs, I would say. I'm not sure how Lens are doing, if truth be told. And he has been with them since 2021. And he played for youth clubs in um, for Marseille as a youth club. He was born in France, Yannick Pandor. And he started, well, we won't go into too much detail unless it's necessary. The fact that he's a definite candidate means he started quite a bit, but we'll cover that in the summary of the position. Let's move on to Salim Ben Boina. So he has been with the team since 2015 and has 28 caps, and he's 34 years old now. He plays for Istres in France and has played for a number of fairly smaller clubs in France, like Martigues and Consulate Marseille in France. Salim Ben Boina was part of the squad in the 2021 African Cup. He was actually the backup keeper, but he did gain the starting position for games 2 and 3 and was injured himself. Part of an interesting story we're going to take a look at. But Salim Ben Boina, also a definite candidate there. At the likely level, we have Adel Anzimati, and he's been with the senior team since 2023 with 7 caps, and he's 24 years old. And he plays in Armenia, probably the main team, one of the main teams in Armenia, Ararat Yerevan in Armenia. But he too played for smaller clubs in France too, Martigues and Quivili Rouen. There. He was born in Réunion, France. So we'll see some of these Comoros players who were born in kind of French provinces, Mayotte, Réunion, for example, and they're connected to France in a similar way to Guadeloupe and Martiniquez, the name was eluding me there, in the Caribbean. So they basically, you can view them as provinces of France. So he was born in Réunion, and some of those players, I'm not sure politically how it works, but end up playing for Comoros. Okay, so Anzi Matti, we're going to see he actually was the starting goalkeeper in the 2024 COSAFA Cup there, but there's not a lot of overlap between the teams that play in those tournaments and the senior team here. He and actually the next goalie are 2 of the players who do overlap. So at the possible level, we have Naeem Saeed Machindra, and he has 4 caps for the national team. They were in the COSAFA Cup there. So he's new to the team since 2025, and he's just 20 years old, is Machindra. He plays for Toulouse B in France since 2024. So we'll talk about the situation. Well, we'll do that right now. Talk about the summary of the position. Well, the goalkeeper situation in the 2021 African Cup is a famous story that I promised to tell you. So here we go. Ali Ahamada was the starting keeper, and now he's a possible but unlikely candidate, as we have seen. But he started the first game, but was replaced in the second by Salim Ben Boina, who started the next 2. Boina, though, got injured in game 3, and Ahamada came in to replace him. However, for game 4, both he and the third string keeper were out with COVID. And so it was the defender, Shakar Al Hadur, who had to play in the position of goalkeeper facing the mighty Cameroon. He actually did quite well, made a couple of saves, and they didn't lose by a big margin there. So that was in 2021, and Ahamadi and the third string keeper there are now gone. Our narrative begins in March of 2024. And in short, Yannick Pandor and Salim Ben Boina have been sharing or rotating in the position over the current period. Pandor has been playing a bit more. He started 5 of the 6 2024 African Cup qualifiers in the fall of 2024 there. I should say 2025 African Cup qualifiers in the fall of 2024. And in the fall of 2025 World Cup qualifiers, Pandor started the first 2 and Boina the third. So rotating in the position, but Pandor seems to take precedence slightly. Actually, in the second last game there, Boina got a red card, and Adel Anzimati came in for his first senior start for the national team there. Anzimati, as we mentioned, had been their keeper in the 2024 COSAVA Cup, but otherwise came up to the senior team and had been the third string keeper throughout this period. Anzimati was not the keeper in the 2025 COSAVA Cup, though. That was Naimi Said Machindra. And we wouldn't make that part of the narrative here, except that Machindra was called up to the bench for the last 4 matches, the matches in the fall of 2025. It was Anzimati who made way there for Machindra. He was not selected for the first 3 of the fall 2025 games there, and Boina was not selected for the last one. So perhaps they're thinking of Machindra for the tournament here. And so that's the situation. So overall, we would say Yannick Pandor is the first string keeper, but a close second, Salim Ben Boina, and we'll take a look at that again when we do the summary at the end. Let's move on to defence, and we'll start by saying then that this is usually a 2-man position in central defence. As we said in part 1, 75% of the games, but in 25%, a third player is added for a 3-man defence. Let's take a look at the candidates here. We begin with a definite candidate, Warmed Omari. However, he is an injury doubt. We'll come back to that soon. And we also have central defender Kasim Ndahoma, also a definite candidate there. And the third one too in Ahmed Soilihi. So 3 definite candidates, which we'll come back and take a look at. None at the likely level, but we have 3 more at the possible level, which sounds right because teams usually bring about 6 central defenders to a tournament. Here we have Youn Zahari, Kenan Toibibu, and Yakin Saeed Mamadi, all 3 of those possible candidates. And finally, we have the player we mentioned in part 1, Najim Abdu, now retired, but we just wanted to put him on the list as a kind of farewell, I guess. Let's go back and look at these players in a bit more detail. So we begin with Warmed Omari. He's been with Comoros since 2024, immediately became a starter for them, so has 11 caps. Omari is 25 years old. And he plays for Lens in France, and he's currently on loan to Hamburg in Germany since 2025. He also did a loan stint with Lyon, so one of their bigger club affiliations in him. He was born in Mayotte, France, so that's the other kind of province that I mentioned. It is an island off the east coast of Africa, but is considered basically a province of France there. And he got his first cap in September 2024 and started 9 of their remaining 11 games. However, Warmed Omari has been out with a ligament injury, a ligament tear, since early October, and he's not expected to return until December 31st. So he seems to be out of the cup. But perhaps there's a chance he'll recover in time for the cup. And I'm sure Comoros will be hoping he will. So that's Warmed Omari. The second definite candidate is Kasim Dahoma, and he has been with Comoros since 2017 with 39 caps and 1 goal, and he is 28 years old. He plays for Aubagne in France since 2024 and has basically been with various smaller clubs in France. He also played for a team in Romania for a little bit. Dahomey is born in France, and he started all 4 games in the 2021 African Cup there, and he's a definite candidate here, Kasim Dahoma. And thirdly, our third definite candidate is always selected, that's why he's definite, but he really only starts about 1 in 3 games, and that is Ahmed Soilihi. So he has been with Comoros since 2017 with 18 caps and is 29 years old. And he was part of the squad. No, he was not part of the squad for the 2021 African Cup. He was one of the candidates we talked about, but didn't make the cut there. He plays for Quevilly Rouen in France, actually his second stint with them, and like many of them, kind of secondary teams in France. But Soilihi also did a stint for a team in Georgia recently. He only started 5 of the 17 games there, but is almost always called up. So we expect him basically be in a substitute role there. Again, no likely candidates. So let's look at the first of our possible candidates. And the first is Youn Zahari. And we won't go into as much detail on him. He's currently playing for a team in Lithuania. And he was a starter in the 2022 African Cup there, and he started 5 of their games. However, he has not been selected for the last 5 matches, Youn Zahari, so just a possible candidate here. The second one is Kanine Toibibu, and he's new to the squad, fairly new since 2023, just 4 caps in that time. And Toibibu is 21 years old. He also plays for Ararat Yerevan in Armenia there. And in fact, his career is very similar, his career path, to the goalkeeper that we talked about who played there. So not just that team, but several teams, they seem to follow each other around. I'm talking about the goalkeeper, Anzi Mati there. So Toibibu and Anzi Mati kind of going hand in hand there. Toibibu was also born in Réunion, in the French province of Réunion. And he earned a single cap in October 2023, then was off the team for almost 2 years, but came back in in June of 2025 and started 2 of the remaining 5 games. So coming in at the end, really, Kanine Toibibu, and we have him as a possible candidate here. The third one is Yakin Said Mamadi, and he plays for Marseille in France. Marseille B in France since 2021. He's been on Comoros since 2022 with 6 caps there, and he is also 2021. He is also 21 years old, like Toibibu. My numbers are coming up in my mouth here. Mamadi was born in France, and well, we won't go into too much detail on him here, but given his participation over the period, he is a possible candidate. Okay, that is it for introducing the candidates. Let's take a look at the situation, or the summary of the position. It was a 2-man central defence in the 2022 African Cup there. and it was Youn Zahari alongside Kasim Ndahoma. That was in 2022, but we jump forward to 2024, and we find Zahari and Ndahoma are still the main pairing. In March of 2024, Soilihi replaced Ndahoma, but Ndahoma comes back for the June 2024 World Cup qualifiers, and so Soilihi is basically on the bench or coming in as a sub until the end of the period where he gets another start. In the fall of 2024, newcomer Warmed Omari comes in for the African Cup qualifying games there. He replaced Zahari until the last of the 6 games and then replaced Ndahoma. So Omari becomes a mainstay and Zahari and Ndahoma kind of alternate alongside of him. However, after March of 2025, Zahari is not called up. That's why we have him as a possible candidate. And we do see Soilihi returning for a couple of starts. And Warmed Omari is out injured for the last 2 games in October of 2025. So that's when we have Kanin Poibibu coming in to replace him. A 3-man defence is used for a few games over the period, and most often it's left defender Ismail Bora joining as part of the 3-man central defence there. So we'll meet Bora right away here. Okay, that's it for the central defence situation. Let's go to the left back situation, and we'll begin with the candidates there. We have 2 definite candidates here. The first is the player I just mentioned, Ismail Bora, and the second is Abdel Hakim Abdallah. And he seems to be more commonly known as Hakim Abdallah, so that is the name I will use. And then we have one player at the likely level, that's Remy Vita. However, I should point out that he only started 1 game, and he started as a right attacking midfielder. So perhaps we're going to have to reconsider his coding once he gets a few more games under his belt. However, he has been on the bench or as a sub, always called up. Only 1 match that he wasn't selected for since his first cap in October of 2024. Okay, let's take a closer look at the candidates here. So the first of the 2 definite candidates is Ismail Bora, and he's been with Comoros since 2024, so fairly new there. But he has 9 caps and he's 25 years old. He plays for Troyes in France since 2023 and Lens in France before that. Lens Youth Club, actually, all the way from 2014. He'd been associated with Lens. He was born, Ismail Bora, in Mayotte there, and he got his first cap or first appearance on the bench in March of 2024, but went on to start 8 of their remaining 17 games. So Ismail Bora, a definite candidate here. Hakim Abdallah is with Comoros since 2017. He has 21 caps and no goals. And Abdallah is 28 years old and plays for Green Comp in France since 2025. Again, kind of smaller French teams, Rodez and Troyes. So Troyes seems to be a club that gathers Comoros players there. Abdallah was born in France, and he started 11 of their 17 games over the period, just 1 match that he wasn't selected for. So Hakim Abdallah, a definite candidate. And we talked a little bit about Remy Vita. He joined the team in October of 2024. He has 5 caps, most of those, in fact, all of those. He got 1 start, as I said, as a right attacking midfielder, otherwise coming in as a substitute. Remy Vita plays for Tondela in Portugal since 2025, and he's played for smaller teams in France and England and Netherlands too, but he was with Bayern Munich's B team for a couple of years there. So Remy Vita may be kind of an up-and-coming player for them, even though he is 24 years old. So those are the three candidates. Let's look at the left-back's situation or summary of the position. It seems that in the 2022 African Cup, they didn't have a designated left-back because it was right-backs who played in the position. In games 1, 3, and 4, it was Saeed Bakari, who we'll meet soon, and in game 2, it was right back Benjaloud Youssef. So again, we will meet those players shortly here. That was back in 2022, though, and our narrative really begins with two friendlies in March of 2024. And here we find that Hakeem Abdallah is starting the first game, and Ismail Boura actually in his debut there in March of 2024, starting the second of those games. It's Hakeem Abdallah who's quite consistently in the position over the current period, though. He is sometimes replaced by Ismail Boura, but in those cases, Abdallah is usually starting in another position, perhaps over on the right back position. I think he played central defence once as well. This is true until the last three games in this period. So the last three games in the fall of 2025, when Boura seems to take over the position and Abdallah is reduced to the bench or to a substitute position. For his part, when Boura used in central defence when it was a three-man defence, and sometimes also moves upfield as a left winger when it's a three-man defence. So kind of takes on a different role when they use a three-man defence. So a little hard to say who the starter is going to be there. We will revisit that in part 3 here. That is a situation on the left side. Let's go over to the right side where we have some interesting players here, because almost all of these players can be found further upfield, even though they are coded as right backs and play as right backs. We sometimes see these guys starting as right attacking or even left attacking midfielders, but we'll get to that. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. We'll just introduce the candidates at this point. So we have a definite candidate in Saeed Bakari, and then a likely candidate in Mohamed Youssef, and a possible candidate in Benjaloud Youssef there. And here we have two candidates who are possible but unlikely. So I'll just actually cover what biography we're going to cover as we put them on the list here. So seemingly, possible but unlikely, Hakim Jaha last appeared for the team in September of 2024. And then Abdallah Ali Mohammed, part of the squad in the 2022 African Cup there, but just made one appearance as a substitute and last appeared for the team in June of 2024. So we will get more information on these players if they're selected for the final squad, but right now it seems unlikely. And finally, we have off the squad Kasim Abdallah, and I maybe should have mentioned him in part 1 because he was a significant player for them in the 2021 African Cup. But he last played for Comoros in 2021 after the 2022 after the African Cup there, and retired from soccer altogether in 2025. So Kasim Abdallah, I'll actually put him in the retired section there. Okay, let's go back and look at some of the more likely candidates here, beginning with Saeed Bakari. We're going to hear his name all over the field, really. He has been with Comoros since 2017 and now has 51 caps and one goal, just one goal, even though he plays as a forward or an attacker sometimes. He's with Sparta Rotterdam in the Netherlands since 2023 and has been with teams in Belgium and France as well. He actually played for Paris Saint-Germain Youth Club in just for a year during his youth. In the 2022 African Cup, he was a starter. He started all 4 games. And is all over the field, really, because he started as a left back there and then played as a right attacker also. So Saeed Bakari, a definite candidate. He started 15 of their 17 games over the period there. Next, we have likely candidate Mohamed Youssef. He's been with the team since 2011, so a real veteran with the team. He's 37 years old and has 46 caps and 3 goals. He plays for Ajaccio in France, or that may be pronounced Ajaccio. And he's been with them since 2018. He also played for a couple of clubs in Greece during his career. Youssef was born in France and was part of the African Cup 2022 squad there. He started all 4 games except for game 3 and also played in various positions. But he did play as a right back in 2 games, as we'll see in the position of the summary. But also does play upfield, as we'll see throughout this media cast. Our possible candidate is Benjaloud Youssef. He's one of the most capped players for Comoros. He's been with the team since 2015 and has 50 caps and 4 goals. He's 31 years old. So Benjaloud Youssef was a starter in the 2022 African Cup there, started all 4 games and again kind of lined up all over the place, a different position in each of his 4 games, including a right attacking midfielder. I didn't mention it, but I think I should, that Youssef also born in France. And just a likely candidate because he was off the team for almost a year, but then he came back in October of 2025. So a veteran kind of making a comeback there. Okay, those are our main candidates. Let's look at the position of right back here in the 2022 African Cup. A player who's now retired started game 1, but it was Mohamed Youssef starting in games 2 and 4, and Benjaloud Youssef starting in game 3 there. So both of those players are still active during the current period. And Benjaloud Youssef started the first of the March 2024 games, while Saeed Bakari, who we saw starting as a left back in the Cup, started as a right back there in the second game of March of 2024. In fact, Saeed Bakari was the starting right back for most of the period, but we did sometimes see him playing as a right attacking midfielder, and in that case, it was usually Mohamed Youssef replacing him in this position. So Mohamed Youssef did get a few starts in late 2024 and in the first half of 2025. But in the fall of 2025, or most recently, it's Bakary starting 3 of the 4 matches, and then Benjaloud Youssef coming back from an absence to start the last game. So those are the 3 candidates there, probably in that order: Saeed Bakary, Mohamed Youssef, and Benjaloud Youssef. We will meet all of these players further upfield as we go forward and look at the attackers. We do jump forward now to look at the midfield. And we're going to begin with just a little comment on the position here. Comoros almost always plays with 3 lines. So I call that a flat midfield. So a defense, a midfield, and a forward line. In only 1 game did they have 2 midfield lines. That's a 4-2-3-1 formation. And only in those cases can we really distinguish defensive and central midfielders. So we do introduce players according to their designated position here as defensive or central midfielders, but for the most part, or in reality, they basically all play as central midfielders. So for defensive midfielders, we have two definite candidates. The first is Yassine Bourhain, and the second is Ayad Mohammed. Those two definite candidates. No one at the likely level, but we have Romain Dow at the possible level. And we have Rafadine Abdullah at the possible but unlikely level. I'll deal with him just as we put his name on the list here because he's possible but unlikely. Last appearing for the team in June of 2024, but he was a starter, Rafadine Abdullah, in the 2022 African Cup there, so his name will come up at the beginning of the summary. Okay, let's look at the candidates. Yassine Bourhain, he has been with Comoros since 2020 and he has 31 caps and 1 goal. He's 27 years old and he plays for Aris Limassol in Cyprus since 2025. He's also played for similar level teams in Denmark and Netherlands and France. He was born in France. In the 2022 African Cup, he only made one appearance in Game 2 as a substitute there. But he's become a bigger part of the team since. He started 12 of their 17 games and is a definite candidate here. The other definite candidate is Ayad Mohammed, and he's been with Comoros since 2021 with 23 caps and no goals. He's 24 years old and plays for Casa Pia in Portugal since 2025. That's a recent move. Mostly he's been with teams in France like Pau and Auxerre there. Ayad Mohammed. He was born in France. He was a starter in the 2022 African Cup, but he's subbed out at halftime in Game 1 and was relegated to the bench, didn't appear again after that. But he has become a more important player, it seems, starting 10 of their 17 games over the period. And almost always called up. Just one match that Ayad Mohammed was not called up for. Our possible candidate, Romain Dow, is new to the team since 2023 with 7 caps, and he's 21 years old. He plays for Marseille. In France, usually with their B team there since 2021. And Dow was born in Mayotte as well. He didn't start any games though, so his 5 appearances were, or his appearances were all as a substitute there. So Romain Dow, still a possible candidate. Okay, let's not look at the position, summary of the position yet. I'm going to actually fix up my graphics because I put things in the wrong place. We're going to look at central midfielders and then summarize the position. After we look at the central midfielders. So let's go and or mention the candidate's name. The most capped player for Comoros is Yusuf Changama, and he's a definite candidate still, even though he's 35 years old. We have another definite candidate in Zaidou Youssef, or Zaidou Yusuf, I'm sorry, and we will come back and look at those guys in more detail. We have no one at the likely level here, but at the possible level, Raouf Umroveli. And then we have Faoud Bachiru, possible but unlikely. And so I'll talk about him now. Actually, a very experienced player. He's 35 years old and played for lots of familiar teams, Nottingham Forest in England, and was with the Paris Saint-Germain Academy as well there. And he was a substitute actually in game one of the 2022 African Cup, but gained a starting position for the remaining three games. So he too will come up at the beginning of the position summary. However, Bachiru last played for the team in September 2023. He's 35 years old, so doesn't look like he's going to be part of the squad here. Let's look at the ones who do, though, and we begin with Yusuf Changama. Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble with that. Changama is also 35 years old, but still very active for the team. He's currently playing in Saudi Arabia with Al Batin. And he also played for a number of, again, secondary level teams, mostly in France. He did play for Oldham Athletic in England back in 2013, but mostly teams in France. He was born in France, Changama, and was a starter, one of their most important players in the African Cup there in 2022. During that tournament, he twice lined up as a forward. He doesn't do that anymore. He's a central midfielder, and we'll talk about that in the summary. So over the recent period, he started 12 of the 17 games, but still very active. He was injured for 2 games during that period, and he scored goals in both 2025 African Cup qualification, 2 goals there, and a goal also in World Cup 2026 qualification. So I think he's best viewed kind of as an attacking midfielder there, Changama. Let's look at the other definite candidate, Zaidou Youssouf. He's been with Comoros since 2024 and has 8 caps with them so far. He's 26 years old, so a bit of a late joiner to the squad. Zaidou Youssouf was born in France and played for Bordeaux too at the beginning of his career in Saint Etienne in France, but has since played for a team in Portugal and is now in Saudi Arabia with Al Fateh. So kind of moving to Saudi Arabia like Mchanga there. He got his first cap in November 2024 and then played 8 of their remaining 9 games. So he's become a pretty important player to them, Zaidou Youssouf. Our possible candidate is Raouf Roivili, and he's brand new to the team since 2025 with 3 caps. Also a bit of a late joiner there because he's 26 years old, and he plays for Villefranche in France since 2025. Smaller clubs in France for him. Roivili was born in France. So he got his first cap in June of 2024 and started 2 of the 5 games and was subbed in for another game as well, and on the bench for 2 others. So he has been called up consistently since, I think that should be June 2025. I said 2024. Anyway, called up consistently since, but not enough history with the team for us to put him above the possible level. And yeah, I don't really see him as a starter, but he did start a couple of games. Okay, we've looked at the defensive and central midfield. And I'm going to make a comment just before we move on. I was thinking with the 4-3-3 formation that they use about half the time, that we would introduce left and right midfielders. But when I took a closer look at it, I'm seeing that it's the same pool of players filling those positions anyway. So there's no one who really distinctly plays as a left or a right midfielder, but rather just this group of players cover the midfield in general. Okay, let's summarize the position then. Um, Yeah, and because of that, because they all kind of clump in the middle, rather than going through the games that we've done for other positions, in this case, we're going to go through the players and their participation level. So there are five main players we're going to talk about, and then three that we'll just mention quickly. So we begin with Yusuf Changama. He appears the most with 12 starts in 17 games. He started twice in the Cup, in the 2022 African Cup, as I said, as a forward, but also twice as a central midfielder. He's always in the midfield now. And he was injured for two games in October 2024. So that pretty much repeats things I said in the bio. Okay. Next we have Yassine Bourhain. Um, he didn't start in the 2022 African Cup, but became a mainstay after that. And like Nchangama, he also started 12 of the 17 games. However, the ones he didn't start, four of them were at the end of the period. So he did return to start the last game, but the four games before that, he was not starting, and I think even not even called up for a couple of those games. So a bit of a concern there going into the Cup as to whether he's going to retain his starting position. We also have Ayad Mohammed. He started 10 of the 17 games. He started the first game of the 2022 African Cup, but was on the bench after that. Otherwise, Mohammed comes in and out as a starter, kind of almost seemingly playing every other game, or sorry, I should say, starting every other game for Comoros. Next, we have Zaidou Youssef. He first appeared in November 2024 and has become a mainstay, starting 8 of the 9 games. So he seems actually a bit more likely, say, than Yassine Bourhain, who didn't play so much towards the end of the period. And then a couple of players who we'll mention: attacking midfielder Rayan Lutin. First appeared in June 2024. We're going to meet him at the end. He started 2 games in the fall of the 2025 African Cup qualifiers. That was in the fall of 2024. So kind of came in, started a couple of games, and then he has since been mostly a sub or a bench player. But we're going to introduce him when we get to attacking midfielders, because that is his coded position, and he did start there the one time they used that attacking midfield position, but did appear a couple of times in the central midfield, Rayan Lutin. And finally, two players, Rafadine Abdullah and Fuad Bachiru. Each of them started 3 of the 4 games in the 2022 African Cup, but now both of them seem to be off the team. All right, that covers the kind of midfield, and we're going to move on upfield again. Left midfielders and right midfielders are not really distinguished, and no one is coded in that position. So we're going to go to the attacking end of the field, and we'll look at the left and right attacking midfielders. This is kind of a position or a category that Soccer Files we've come up with ourselves, and we've come to see this attacking midfield position as kind of an amalgamation of an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation, or it could be an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or a left or right forward in a 4-3-3 formation. So we're often finding that regardless of the formation and the position, it tends to be the same group of players. So oversimplifying it a bit, but makes it a bit easier to talk about. So we look at left attackers here, or at least players coded as left attackers, because they do play in other positions. But we have 2 definite candidates. The first, Rafiki Saeed, and the second, Faiz Selamani. Both of those definite candidates. And then we have a likely candidate in Adel Mahamoud, although he really doesn't start. He's likely because he's always called up. We'll talk about that when we get to a bit of a closer look at him. Let's take a closer look at the definite candidate, Rafiki Saeed. So he has been with Comoros since 2023 and 17 caps and 8 goals for the team. He's 25 years old. Rafiki Saeed plays for Standard Liège in Belgium. And again, Troyes in France comes up. And that level of team, Nimes and Stade Brestois in France as well. However, he was born in Comoros, Rafiki Saeed, and he was not part of the previous African Cup. He started 14 of their 17 games over the period. He got his start in 2023, but has become a regular starter since there. More in other positions, no, mostly in this position, but also in other positions. Rafiki Saeed scored one of their 7 goals in African Cup 2025 qualifying, was their top scorer in World Cup 2026 qualifying with 3 of their 12 goals there. So Rafiki Saeed, a definite candidate. Next, we have Faiz Salamani. He's been with the team much longer, since 2017, with 45 caps and 7 goals, and he's 32 years old. He plays for Qatar SC, Qatar Soccer Club, in Qatar, and actually has been in the Middle East for since 2023. 3 different teams, 2 of them in Saudi Arabia and 1 in Qatar. And before that, he played, like many of the others, in Belgium and France. Teams like Lorient in France and Tours in France there too. He was born in France, Faiz Salamani, and in the African Cup in 2022, he started and finished games 2 and 3 there, and he was suspended for game 4. I guess he picked. I'm not guessing. He picked up 2 yellow cards, so it's suspended for the last game there. Okay, Faiz Salamani then, a definite candidate here. However, he's the one who actually plays more on the right attacking side. Just a few starts on the left over here. The third candidate here is at the likely level, Adel Mahamoud, and as I said, he doesn't really start. He's been with the team since 2022 and does have 12 caps and 1 goal, the 22-year-old, and he plays for Nantes in France. He was with their B team and youth club as well. He was born in France, Adel Mahamoud, and he didn't start any of their 17 games, but he was subbed in for half of them, and only 2 matches that he wasn't selected for. However, those were the last 2 matches, so I'm wondering I should move him down to the possible level. Basically, he was injured for 6 games and then came back, but not selected for the last 2 matches. So actually, I'm going to move him down to the possible level there. That seems more fitting. Again, the recent participations can be quite important. Okay, let's take a look at the position or a summary of the position. So in the 2022 African Cup, we have right back Benjaloud Youssef, who started the first game. We're going to see another player, Ahmed Mogni, a little bit during the early part or during the early part of the period. He started 1 game. And I'll just dispense with him here. Ahmed Mogni started 1 game on the left here and 1 on the right in the 2022 African Cup. And he also started a game in March of 2024, but that was his last appearance. So he only features in the early part of the period. So we have Benjaloud Youssef starting 1, Ahmed Mogni starting 1, and Faiz Salamani starting two games 2 and 3 there. From March of 2024, though, it's Rafiki Saeed playing the position about half of the time. Especially when it's a 4-3-3 formation. So Rafiki Saeed, he also plays as a forward, as we'll see. Faiz Salamani seems the main backup player. He played 3 times in this position in the current period, but we do again see right back Benjalud Youssef appearing once. And then there are a couple of occasions where the formation doesn't have this position of left attacking midfield. So as I said, we're going to see Rafiki Saeed and Faiz Salaman going forward here. And let's move over to the right attacking midfield. This is where Salamani hangs out the most. But we've already introduced him. And for players in this position, we actually have no players to introduce. So no players actually coded as right attackers. So it's out of position players playing. So I'll actually jump straight to summarizing the position. Here, it's actually the 3 right backs, Benjalud Youssef, Mohamed Yusuf, and Saeed Bakary, each starting once as a right attacking midfielder in the 2022 African Cup. And the player I mentioned who's now off the team, Ahmed Mogni, also started once. So 4 different players over the 4 games. In the current period, though, it is Faiz Salamani, coded as a left winger, who's starting most of the time in this position. When he is replaced, though, it's usually by a right back, especially Saeed Bakary, who started 3 times as a right attacking midfielder. Benjalud Youssef also started once on this side, and this is also where the left back that I mentioned also got his single start. I didn't write his name down there, so now I have to jump back and take a look. But I'm talking about Remy Vita. He also started once. So obviously it's a position that nobody is really coded for. And also in a couple of formations, they didn't use the position. But we can think of Faiz Salamani as the main man here. Let's move on to central attacking midfielders. And here we have a likely candidate and a player we've mentioned already, Ryan Luton. And then we've mentioned also Ahmed Mogni. He's coded as an attacking midfielder, but as I said, he is seemingly off the squad now, having last appeared in March of 2024. So that's quite a while ago now. And we also have a player actually at the possible but unlikely level, Emerick Ahmed. Here, so I'll dispense with him too, just as I write his name down here. Emerick Ahmed last appeared for the team in October of 2024. So again, players at this level will get more information on in part 2 if they're actually selected for the squad. So really just one player to look a bit more closely at. It's Ryan Luton, and he has been with Comoros since 2024. He has 8 caps and is 22 years old, and he plays for Amiens in France. And born in France and has been with clubs in France all the way. As we said, he started in central midfield a couple of times. He has got his first cap in June of 2024 and started 2. I thought he actually started 3 because I thought he started 2 in the midfield and 1 as an attacking midfielder, but perhaps I'm wrong there. Mostly, though, he is a substitute And we have him as a likely candidate because there are only two of the 17 games, or two of the 14 games since he joined, that he wasn't called up for. He was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 4. So likely to be selected for the squad, although not a likely starter. And a summary of the position is quite straightforward here. They only used the central attacking midfield position once in a 4-2-3-1 formation, and it was Rayan Newton playing the position that one time that they used it. So he is the main man, but the position is not used very much. All right, that is it for the midfield. We move on to the forwards, and we do have a category for second strikers, but we have no players playing there, and also they don't use that position in the formations they've used. So we jump straight to the forwards, and here we have a definite candidate in Maizien Maolida. He's our definite candidate. We have no candidates at the likely level, and then we have a possible candidate in El Fardu Ben Nabuhain. And we'll come back to talk about him because he was an important player for them, but not so much anymore. We also have at the possible level Faiz Matwar. And then two more players, I should have said. There were 4 in all. So the third one is Ibrahim Yusuf, and the fourth one is Abubakar Ali or Abubakar Ali Abdallah. All 4 of those possible candidates. And finally, possible but unlikely, Ibrahim Mahdi. So I'll just say here that he last appeared for the national team on the bench in March of 2021, way back then. But one of my sources does have him playing a game in 2025. It may have been a Kosova Cup game, but maybe he is still in and about. So we put Ibrahim Mahdi at the possible but unlikely level. Let's go back and look at the candidates, especially definite candidate Maizien Maolida. He joined Comoros in 2023. A bit of a late joiner because he's 26 years old. And he has 17 caps and 5 goals in his time here. He plays for Al Khulud in Saudi Arabia. He moved there in 2024. Prior to that, he played for clubs in Germany, Scotland, and France. Mostly in France. He was born there, and he was not part of the squad, of course, for the previous cup. Let me gather my wits here. He started 13 of their 17 games over the period and just one match that he wasn't selected for. So he's become an important player since joining in 2023. He scored one of their goals in qualifying for this cup. That was a late winning goal against Gambia. And in World Cup qualifying, he scored 4 of their 12 goals, including their only goal in a win over Ghana. So Comoros tends to terrorize Ghana there. And that's it. We will come back to him when we summarize the position. But Maizien Maolida, their top forward here. The man who used to be their top forward was Al Fardu Ben Nabuhain. And for ever since way back when we first dealt with Comoros in 2021, I've been trying to figure out what to call him because that's such a long name. And different websites call him different things. El Fardu, or they may call him Nabuhain. In the 2021 African Cup, they just called him Ben. The announcers just called him Ben. And in fact, he had Ben M on the back of his shirt. And I was like, okay, well, amidst his long name, there is nothing beginning with M. But after some research, I found his actual name is Al Fardu Mohammed Ben Nabuhain. So the M stands for Mohammed. Anyway, I'm just going to call him Ben because that's what the announcers called him. He's been with Comoros since 2014 with 44 caps and an impressive 19 goals. However, he is aging out here. He's 36 years old. And he hasn't really been a starter over the modern period. He plays for Zemun in Croatia since 2025, and he's played all over the place and for some pretty good teams. He played in Serbia for Red Star Belgrade and in Greece for Olympiacos there, so a well-traveled player. He was born in Mayotte. I gotta say Ben Nabuhi because Ben just sounds too simple. Okay, so he scored in their qualifying campaigns for the 2017 and 2019 African Cup. In fact, for the qualifying campaign in 2019, he scored 5 of their 8 goals, including a late tying goal against Morocco there. So a very important player for the team in the past. He was a starter in the 2022 African Cup and is credited for getting their first African Cup goal. That was just 4 minutes into their game against Ghana, which turned out to be a 3-2 win over Ghana. So Ben Nabuhin is a famous player for Comoros. However, over the recent period, he hasn't started any of the 17 games. He's become a substitute. He was subbed in for 7 matches, but he was also not selected for 7 matches. So kind of drifting off the team. Ben Nabuhin. So we consider him a possible candidate. Perhaps he'll be brought more for his experience than for his play. The other possible candidate is Faiz Matoir. He's been with Comoros since 2020 and has 18 caps and 2 goals. He's 25 years old, currently playing in Bulgaria, but he was born in Mayotte and played most of his early career for French teams. Before moving to Netherlands and playing for Almere City. Faiz Matoir was part of the squad for the 2022 African Cup, but just as a substitute, he subbed into 3 games there and didn't score any goals. Matoir, also like Ben Nabuhin, has not started any of the 17 games, but he too was subbed in for 7. However, he was not selected for 7 matches. That's a lot like Nabuhin, actually. But in his case, 5 of those were the last 5 matches. So Faiz Matoir perhaps drifted off the team completely at the end here and is just a possible candidate, although I think Ben Nabuhin is more possible. The third possible candidate is Ibrahim Yusuf. Well, we won't go into too much detail on him. He's playing in Botswana now, has actually played his career in Africa. So I think this is the first player we've actually met who's playing in Africa. He was subbed into the 2022 African Cup there, so was subbed into games 2 and 4 and also started one of the games too. So he was kind of, I wouldn't say important in that cup, but featured in that cup and scored their only goal in qualifying in the 2022 World Cup qualifications there. He didn't score any goals though here because for this tournament because he didn't start any of their games. He was subbed in for 5 and Ibrahim Yusuf has not been selected for the last 7 matches. So almost an unlikely candidate, and I look back feeling that I've gone into too much detail on him. So we'll make it a bit faster with our 4th possible candidate, Abubakar Ali. He was born in Réunion, France, and has been with the team since 2025. Very young, 19 years old. Got his first cap in March of 2025 there, and was called up for 5 of those, 5 of their last 7 games, but not for the last 2. But he does seem a bit more likely than Matoir or Ibrahim Yusuf. So I'm going to move him up on the list into 2nd place here, Abubakar Ali, and they may bring him to get experience the 19-year-old. Okay, that's all the candidates we have there. So not a lot of selection here, but we are going to see that some out-of-position players do come in to the position as we take a look at the summary of the position. So Ben Nabuhain was really a hero in the 2022 African Cup, scoring their first goal in that competition. He started all 4 games, but in 2 of the games, he was accompanied by central midfielder Yusuf Changama in 2 of the games. And in one of the games, Ibrahim Yusuf also was partnered with him. Now, I'll just take this opportunity, now that we've mentioned Ibrahim Yusuf, to say that very few of the players that we've talked about in this mediacast here play in the 2022 and 2024 and 2025 COSAFA Cups. However, we did see a couple of the backup goalies in those competitions. Anzimati was the starter in 2024. Machindra was the starting goalkeeper in 2025. Really, the only other familiar name in those COSAFA Cup squads is Ibrahim Yusuf. He's captain of the team there and a real mainstay. However, as we've seen, he's only selected for about half of the games for the senior team, and he doesn't start any games but just subbed in for a few. So that's about as much overlap as there is between the senior team and the COSAFA Cup teams. Anyway, that's what I said about Ibrahim Yusuf. Starting none and subbing in for a few is the same for Ben Nabuhain over the recent period. And Changama, who also started as a forward in the African Cup there, now is just in the midfield. He doesn't play up front anymore. Who we do have is left attacking midfielder Rafiki Saeed. Saeed starting the first of the March 2024 games, and Maizien Maolida starting the second in March of 2024. And for Maolida, that was his 3rd game for the national team, so came in just after, at the end of 2023 there. Maolida, though, has become a mainstay and started most of the games alone in 2024 as a single forward, but he was paired with Rafiki in 2 of the 8 matches. And that continues throughout 2025, mostly as a single forward, but sometimes paired with Rafiki. Rafiki did start 1 game alone, and in 2 cases, Rafiki and Salamani started as a pair of forwards when Maolida was out. So really the same group of players up here. So the typical 4-3-3 formation, if you want to envision Comoros here, is Maolida in the center with Rafiki on the left and Salamani on the right. All right, that brings us to the end of our look at the players.
We move into section 3. We want to welcome new listeners to section 3 here, which we're going to release as a short version on part 1 of Comoros' players. So to those people, in the full version, we introduced the candidates and their likelihood of making the final squad. We also talked about who have been the main players in each position. And you can go to the full version for reasons for our prediction and for some career information on the main players. For those who have listened to that, then this is just a review summary, and we're not concerning ourselves with predicting starters at this point, but we will do that in part 2. So let's go back and take a look. We have manager Stefano Kusin. He's been manager throughout this whole period, so we will consider him a definite candidate. He got them to the cup after all. Moving on to goalkeepers, we have 2 definite candidates, Yannick Pandor and Salim Ben Boina. and a likely candidate in Adel Anzimati, and a possible candidate in Naeem Saeed Machindra, who seemed to be making a bit of a bid for the third string keeper at the end there. In terms of, those are the candidates that we have here. And let's move on to defenders. So in central defence, three definite candidates. The first one, though, Warmed Omari, is an injury doubt. We'll talk about that more after this section. We also have definite candidates Kassim Ndahoma and Ahmed Soilihi. And we have no candidates at the likely level, but three possible candidates: Youn Zahari, Kenan Toibibu, and Yakin Saeed Mamadi. And we think actually all of those candidates might be chosen, especially if Omari is not available, because 5 or 6 central defenders is usually how many they bring. We also talked a little bit about retired candidate or retired player Najim Abdu, who was captain of the team the last time they were at an African Cup. In the left back position, we have two definite candidates, Ismail Bora and Abdel Hakim Abdallah, often called Hakim Abdallah. And one at the likely level, though he doesn't really start, Remy Vita. He'll probably be on the bench. In the right back position, well, all of these players actually do play further upfield, so we can see them as attackers sometimes. Definite candidate Saeed Bakari, likely candidate Mohamed Yusuf, and possible candidate Ben Jaloud Yusuf. We have two possible but unlikely candidates. They are Akim Jaha and Abdallah Ali Mohammed, and then a retired player there, Kassim Abdallah, was on the squad in the previous African Cup. That was in January of 2022, so quite a while back, but now retired. Midfield, they usually use a 4-3-3 formation. They don't often use formations that have specific defensive or central midfielders. But generally, we find, even though it's a 4-3-3 formation, the ones who play left and right midfield are the same ones who we might find in the middle. So just a big kind of clump of players here defined according to their designated positions. So designated as defensive midfielders, we have Yassine Bourhain and Iyad Mohammed. Those two are definite candidates. None at the likely level, and then a possible candidate in Ramain Dow, and possible but unlikely Rafadine Abdullah, part of the played 3 of their 4 games in the previous African Cup, but now seems to be off the squad. Central midfielders, their probably most important player, Yusuf Mchangama, is a definite candidate, and newcomer Zaidou Yusuf, also a definite candidate there. None at the likely level, but a possible candidate in Raouf Mroivili, and possible but unlikely Fouad Bashiru also played a role in the previous African Cup. Again, no players coded as left and right midfielders, so it'll be those defensive and central midfielders filling out the role when they play a 4-3-3, as they do about half of the time. Moving up to the attacking midfielders, we have left attacking midfielders Rafiki Saeed and Faiz Salamani as definite candidates, and a possible candidate in Adel Mahamoud. On the right side, though, we have no candidate designated as right wingers or right attacking midfielders, and it is actually the left attacking midfielder Faiz Salamani mostly playing over here, and we would put him as a definite candidate on this side too. For central attackers, they don't use this position that much. We have no definite candidates. We have a likely candidate in Ryan Luton, though he is mostly a substitute, and then a possible but unlikely candidate in Aymeric Ahmed, and off the squad, Ahmed Mogdi, again, one of the players left over from the 2022 African Cup. Actually, the 2021 African Cup played in 2022. Anyway, Mogni seems to be off the squad now, last appearing in March 2024. Secondary strikers, we have no players designated as secondary strikers, so we move on to forwards. We have a definite candidate in Maizien Maolida. No candidates at the likely level, but 4 at the possible level. One is Ben Nabuhain, a star back in the previous African Cup there. We have Abu Bakar Ali and Faiz Matwar and Ibrahim Yusuf. So we'll see at least a couple of those, I would imagine, selected for the final squad. And then a possible but unlikely candidate, Ibrahim Nadi. That's it, our motorcycle ride through the squad there. Let's take a look at injuries. And really just the one I mentioned is Warmed Omari, the central defender. He is out with a ligament tear since early October. He's expected to return on December 31st. The cup begins on December 21st, so maybe he'll be able to make it. He's a definite candidate, so they will hope he does. But we'll say close call for him on Warmed Omari. Closing thoughts, well, it's a pretty small squad. We do see players playing in various positions, so not a lot of bench strength here, but their starting team has got them to the African Cup here. In fact, they qualified ahead of Tunisia, so a good starting squad, but a bit thin overall. Let's preview part 2. Part 2 will be coming up at the beginning of December, we would imagine. And we're going to tell you, we'll repeat some of what we said here, but we will know who's been selected for the final squad. So that's the main order of business, is to tell you which of these players were selected. We'll talk about any notable non-selections, any surprise inclusions, and any new players. I really wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of new players. We'll update that injury on Warmed Omari, and tell you of any other injuries that have happened. And the other main order of business in part 2 is we predict the starters, the players who we think will start. So that brings us to the end of part 1 of our look at Comoros' players, and we hope to see you again in part 2. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.